15. Kibaridi cha asubuhi, kijua fani so kikali saa 5. Kutoka alo nilikutana naye Kilimani, Nairobi 2015. Kibaridi cha asubuhi, kijua fani so kikali saa 5. Nairobi 2015. Nikamchagua yeye katikati ya wenzake 5. Nikamuomba kanio namba, moyoni Mungu nikampa 1. She's my number 1. Nikamuomba kaniomba namba, moyoni Mungu nikampa 1. Now she's my number 1.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good after lunch. Good after lunch. It's all right. I want us to be upstanding, and please look for your neighbors who have not come back. Don't go to fetch them. Just make a phone call, because you go, you will join them. So just call them and tell them we are ready to start. And I want us to be upstanding. Let's stand up as you look for your neighbors. Let's just be upstanding. Find them, President. All right. Are you upstanding? Are you upstanding? Are you upstanding? Good. I want you to walk around the room. Listen to my instructions. I want you to walk around the room. Meet 1 person, 2 persons, 3 persons. Should I return my school fees, or my teacher was doing a good job? I need to sign up for a refund. All right. I want you to meet 3 people. 3 people that you have not. Now, you Tanzanians and Zanzibaris, don't meet a fellow Zanzibari and tell me you didn't know them. I have refused. So, I want you to go and find 3 people that you have never met. The first one, you're going to introduce yourself. Tell them the food you guys eat in your country. And then you have to take a selfie. Okay? In the meantime, Yusuf, where is my QR code before we start networking so that we can start seeing the photos? Yeah? Are we together with the instructions? So you walk around the room, meet 3 people, introduce yourself, tell them the food you guys eat in your country, and take a selfie. After that, we have a WhatsApp group. There's a WhatsApp group. You can scan the QR code on the screen. Yes, there's a QR code. You can scan there and join the WhatsApp group. And you can share your experiences. You can share your everything. And we can continue networking on that WhatsApp group, right? So that next time you have your conference, I know all of them are coming up next week, the other week until November. Then at least you have people to invite. And start looking like you're an international organization. That time it is just me, Grace, who has come. All right, we together? Now we are not just going to walk around the room. We are dancing our way to the next person. Are we together? We are dancing what? So DJ, let us try the dancing first. DJ, give us something. Even Raj is going to dance. And please, if you have somebody who is dancing like an African, tell them to teach us their ways. DJ. Hey, DJ. Shall I start singing myself? My God, I cannot sing to save my life. No, I have not been paid to sing. DJ? All right. Hey, DJ. And that song, can we get something like you were playing earlier? Or you push it towards the end? Okay? So first of all, take a selfie with the people you have as the DJ. Find... Oh, you're busy scanning the community. Okay, I'll give you a minute. Scan the community as the DJ sorts himself. Dance your way to meet somebody. Dance your way to meet somebody. Dance your way to meet somebody. Dance your way to meet someone. Dance your way to meet someone. Just know them and they are good. All right, allow me to invite a partner from UNICAF to tell us what they have, so that then we can move on to the session this afternoon. Let's appreciate the lovely lady as she comes up on stage. Let's encourage her. Let's encourage her.
Hi. Hi, everyone. It's beautiful when you are in the midst of different countries. It feels very nice to just connect and, have a union that is long-lasting. So today, in front of you is Winnie Rachel. I serve as the country director for UNICAF, and I'm so much privileged to be here in your midst. One, because of seeing our Kenyan fraternity being part of this, IHRM and other organizations, but also seeing the entire Africa converge in this space. For this particular function, we came in as the educational partners. Thank you. We came in as the educational partners. And I'm going to say that in 1 minute, because I believe this is something that has been very instrumental to the workforce. At the heart of human resource is what we have is the workforce, and the workforce is the most important asset that we have in an organization. The best way to take care of it is by ensuring that they are up to date with the skills that they are supposed to use to make sure that the organization goes to the next level. And so UNICAF as an organization comes in as a partner, which we operate as a scholarship foundation that assists organizations and individuals to access scholarships to be able to allow their employees to pursue their bachelor's, their master's, their PhDs within an online platform, but again with partners from UK and also in Africa. So simply put, the HR's budgets are usually on negative. And the other thing that people also experience is people feel in organization that is a lot of favorism. Somebody has been taken for a training somewhere, I wanted to go for that and all that. This is an opportunity for all organizations to be able to access training program and scholarship for bachelor's, master's, and PhDs without anybody being left out. And the beautiful thing about it is that it also extends to their family members. That is their immediate nuclear family if they have. And so in a nutshell, I'd like to take this opportunity to give out my contacts so that we can be able to engage on how we can help your organization. And you also seated here. How many of us have done their masters and PhDs in this house? Those hands are too little. Yeah. As the heads of these institutions, we should all now be doctors, right? Yeah? Yeah, and that is possible because UNICAF is here to be able to provide those particular scholarships. We have a very beautiful program. And so I'd like to request all of us, we have a tent right outside there. The beautiful lady seated over here, Sheila, just stand. She'll be on that particular tent. If you want your organization to onboard this, I think we have done this with HRM. Madam Kuresha, the CEO, is here, who can attest how much this has been of impact to the members of IHRM. And so we have a tent there. Please go register your name and your organization and also your contact. Then I think after the conference, we can pick up this conversation. It's a new dawn for Africa. We most of the time leave our spaces to go outside there to support people, but this is the time where we can all come in one space, support each other through a scholarship program. And if you want it for your own also, yes, please pass by our tent and do the registration. Meanwhile, my contacts are +254, I come from Kenya, +254 724 05 7728. I'll say that again. +254 724 05 7728. Otherwise, I look forward to networking with all of you and having a beautiful moment on how to transform the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Let's appreciate Sheila. Not Sheila, gosh, Winnie. Eish. Sheila, have you paid me? Anyway. A round of applause for Sheila. Thank you for your partnership. Please take advantage of the scholarship so that your people can also benefit. So at this point, we want to, unfortunately, we had, what do we call it? An apology from Madam Aida, who was supposed to take the first keynote. However, she recorded a video and we would like to play it. Joseph?
Human Resources Confederation, TAPA, honored guests, colleagues, and friends from across Africa, greetings from Singapore. It is a great privilege to address the second African HR Summit. Distinguished leaders of the African Human Resources Confederation, TAPA, honored guests, colleagues, and friends from across Africa, greetings from Singapore. It is a great privilege to address the second African HR Summit on behalf of the World Federation of People Management Associations. Today, we gather under a powerful theme, transforming Africa's workforce for the future. I cannot think of a more urgent or inspiring conversation. What makes this moment remarkable is that although I am thousands of kilometers away, technology allows me to stand before you, share ideas, and be part of this important dialogue. This is more than convenience. It is a glimpse of the future. We are living through the birth of a new economic era, an AI-enabled world where distance matters less, knowledge travels instantly, and opportunities can be created anywhere. Yet the future will not be defined by technology alone. Artificial intelligence can process information, it can generate insights, it can automate tasks, but it cannot replace human purpose, human courage, human values, or human leadership. That is why HR's role has never been more important. Across Africa, you are leading one of the world's youngest, fastest growing, and most dynamic workforces. The decisions we make today about skills, education, leadership, inclusion, and workforce transformation will shape not only organizations, but entire communities and economies for generations to come. The question before us is not whether AI will change work. It already is. The question is whether we will have the vision and courage to ensure that technology elevates humanity, creates opportunities for all, and enables people to thrive. I believe Africa is uniquely positioned to lead this transformation. With its talent, entrepreneurial spirit, resilience, and innovation, Africa has the opportunity not merely to adapt to the future of work, but to help define it. As HR leaders, let us seize this moment. Let us become architects of opportunity, champions of lifelong learning, and builders of workplaces where both people and technology can flourish together. Together, we can create a future that is more productive, more inclusive, and more human than ever before. I wish you a highly successful summit, meaningful conversations, and bold outcomes that will inspire the next generation of African workforce leaders.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I was looking forward to better claps, but I know the challenge to create organizations that can coexist with technology and people wondering whether it will work. I give you a second to scratch your head. Just figuring out whether, is that even making sense? But it is, right? And that is setting the stage for the conversation we are going to have in this summit. So we are going to move on to the panel discussion. And the panel this afternoon is a very interesting one with very wonderful speakers who are going to probably challenge our thinking, help us unlearn as we relearn. And with us this afternoon is Madam CHRP, Kuresha Abdullahi, and she's going to help us unpack the conversation this afternoon. And Madam Kuresha Abdullahi is the Executive Director of the Institute of Human Resource Management in Kenya, with over 19 years of local, regional, and global experience in human resource management. She is also a certified HR auditor, and she is a strategic leader at where she drives professional development, innovation, advocacy, and public standards for over 20,000 members. Previously, she held senior HR roles with the International Rescue Mission across Africa. I'm sure some of you are wondering what's going on. Now you have understood what is going on. This thing of technology and people sometimes. Yeah, so she drives HR professional development, innovation, advocacy, and policy standards for over 20,000 members. Previously, she held senior HR roles with the International Rescue Committee across East Africa, Somalia, and the Horn of Africa, plus Yemen. She is passionate about mentoring, empowering teams, and advising the HR profession. Ladies and gentlemen, let's a round of applause for Madam Kuresha as she comes up on stage. A round of applause. Do you know, you guys walking across the room, how intimidating it can be? Hey, some of you, if I gave you a microphone to even ask your question from where you are, you'll tell me, I don't want to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grace. Good afternoon, Africa. Grace has forgotten to add that, again, coming up here and speaking without a podium. You need to know what goes on behind the podium with our legs. So let me repeat that greeting again. Good afternoon, Africa. I only heard from this row. I've not heard from this row and this row. I'll repeat again. Good afternoon, Africa. Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, Grace, and thank you, everyone. I hope each one of you have enjoyed the morning sessions. I know we've said it's an opening ceremony, but it was a masterclass of its own. Allow me to now introduce my panel, a Pan-African panel that will take us through a journey on a conversation. But before I get into the conversation we will have, let me introduce my panelists. And I start with Mr. Ahmed Gobir, who is the president of CIPM Nigeria. He is the Group Chief HR Officer, Dangote Cement PLC, the company that is industrializing Africa in a very big way. He's also a board member of Africa Human Resource Confederation, a global HR thought leader. He has worked in several countries, Ethiopia, Ghana, Sierra Leone, South Africa, Tanzania, Zambia. And his work is not just to be a CHRO, he builds HR capabilities. Please join me in welcoming President Ahmed Gobir. Welcome. And you don't stop until he gets here. I can see some of you are not clapping. Your turn will come, so please clap. Thank you. Welcome, Ahmed. Yes, please. Allow me to introduce my second panelist, Mr. Wali Diouf. He is the Vice President of the Senegalese Association of Human Resource Professionals and the head of Human Resource and Administration at Dangote Cement, Senegal. an experienced HR leader with a background spanning in human resource and information system. He has an interest in the HR area of people strategy, employee relations, organization transformation, HR digitization, and the future of work. He's also actively involved in the postgraduate teaching and in the development of HR profession in Senegal, an organization that was founded in 1974. That is ASPRH. You will tell us what that stands for when you come here. But he is also interested in advancing the HR professional knowledge sharing, networking, and contribution at national level. Today, he's here to represent his association, and I was able to figure out what ASPHR means, Association of Senegalese Human Resource Professionals. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Wali to the stage. Karibu. Thank you. You got the memo. You clap until he gets here. Then I introduce my third panelist. Allow me to introduce Calvin. Calvin is the president of Zambia Institute of Human Resource Management. He is also the director of human resource at Zambia Revenue Authority, where his leadership focuses on organization performance, employee development, integrity, and public service. He holds Master of Science in Human Resource Management, Bachelor of Art degree. He is also a fellow of the Zambian Institute of Human Resource Management. He's an expert in corporate governance. He is a strategist, not only helps I'm tempted to say the KRA of Kenya, collecting the revenues from and building the nation, but he's also focused on HR governance and regulatory compliance. Very few public institutions do that. He's also focused on employee productivity and organizational performance. By the way, amidst us, we have the chairperson of HRMPEB, who is also a commissioner at the Salary and Revenue Commission. So when I see the word productivity, the first institution that comes to mind is SRC. Please join me in welcoming Calvin to the stage. Welcome, Calvin. Let's clap until he gets here. Now, my distinguished delegates, it's time to put into perspective the topic that we are going to discuss this afternoon, and that is Africa's gig and remote workforce from policy and productivity and strategies perspective. It is an honor for me to moderate this very important conversation. But let me begin with a very simple conversation. How many of you, by show of hands, have worked with someone whom they've never met physically? Look behind you or in front, you will see the number of hands that have gone up. Let me repeat the question. How many of you have worked with someone whom they have never met physically? My friends, this is the future of work, but also this is the reality of work. Today, a software developer in Zambia is serving a company in the Europe and Asia. A designer in Senegal can complete assignment and even compete for those ideas with a client or a fellow competitor in America. A consultant in Kenya can support an organization in Nigeria. And a young man or a lady is sitting in a small town away from any corporate headquarters and is competing for opportunities around the world. For those of us from Kenya, what was the town that our president referred to, that it will be in the map of Kenya, and people joked, and we've seen results? Taptengele. Taptengele. So there was a time our president launched an ICT hub in the remotes of Rift Valley, and he said the young man in Taptengele will compete for opportunities around the world. And the content creators were at a go. But that is the reality that we have. We've also realized by just your hands, work is no longer a place we go to. It is a result we deliver. Only in this room, I have heard many of you saying at some point you will step out because you have strategy meetings that you have to join through Zoom. And that tells you you do not have to be physically around people for you to make an impact. For generations, work was defined with three things. And listen to me as we put this topic into perspective. Work was defined by three things: a workplace, an employer, and a working schedule. Let me say that again, because I know there are many of you who are seated in this room who are still focused on those three: a workplace, an employer, and a working schedule. Today, technology is separating all the three. A person can actually work for you without stepping into your office. They may work for several clients rather than just working for you. They may be paid for a task, a project, or an outcome rather than the number of hours they spend at that work. And sometimes they may be managed more than one human supervisor because of the nature of their work. This means that the gig and the remote economy is not simply changing where we work. It's changing who we consider a worker, what we consider a workplace, and how we manage performance and define the employment relationship itself. And for Africa, this conversation could not be more urgent. Now let's put some numbers into perspective. Every year, approximately 10 to 12 million young Africans enter the labor market. But only about, remember I said Africa, but only about 3 million formal jobs are created. Think about that. 12 million young people looking for an opportunity, and only 3 million formal jobs are being created. That leaves us with a serious leadership question. Can Africa continue waiting for conventional employment to solve unconventional employment challenge? Personally, and from my own perspective, the answer, I believe, is no. The gig and the and the remote economy could help Africa close the distance between talent and opportunity. We don't lack the talent. It's the opportunity that we need to expand through the gig and the remote economy. Africa has talent and the world has the work. So how do we create that convergence? Technology can build the bridge between the two. Another number to put into perspective. The World Bank found that the job postings on major digital platforms grew approximately by 130% in sub-Saharan Africa between 2016 and 2020, compared with only 14% in North America. These statistics, even though I don't have the updated one yet, tells us a story. Africa is not waiting to enter the future of work. Africa is already in it, and this data is 6 years ago. The question is whether we are prepared to lead it. And Raj, I remember what you've said earlier on. We should not be trained to survive the future of work. We should be prepared to lead it. And I liked how you've put that into perspective. And every opportunity comes with responsibility, and every new solution introduces new questions. And allow me to frame now the conversations that we'll have in a short while into 4 important pillars. The first one, opportunity versus access. Gig and remote work can open doors for young people, women, persons with disabilities, caregivers, professionals living outside major cities. But only, again, another number for you to put into perspective, only 36% of African population was using internet in 2025. Who is building the infrastructure for the 74%? That is a question we need to ponder. That means remote work may remove geographical barriers while creating new digital barriers. And that is the inequality that we need to address as Africans. If a young person has a talent but lacks reliable electricity, affordable internet, a suitable device, the digital skills, or access to international payment system, can we say that opportunity is really available? Because if they wanted to work for a global company and they can't even set up the payment mode, which requires internet. Again, I want to say the door may be open, but we have many of us who cannot reach. We must therefore ensure Africa's digital economy does not become an exclusive economy available only to those who are in urban, connected, and already advantaged. The second aspect that we need to put into perspective is flexibility versus protection. I want you to underline that, because as HR professionals, you are the judge and the jury between the employer and the employees. Ask any gig worker what they value, and many will tell you it's the flexibility. The freedom to choose when to work, the freedom to choose where to work, sometimes even the freedom to choose how much work they want to do for you. But flexibility without protection can quickly become a vulnerability. The same worker may have no predictable income, medical cover, pension, paid leave, occupational protection, and accessible process for resolving a dispute. Because most of them are getting into the gig economy with no proper agreement. We must therefore ask ourselves, how do we protect the worker without destroying the flexibility that attracted the worker? In June 2026, the International Labour Conference adopted Convention number 193 on decent work in the platform economy. And I hope many of you have accessed what was adopted, because it addresses the important issues of such worker classification, transparent payment, social security, occupational safety, data protection, algorithmic decisions, and dispute resolution. The principle behind it is very powerful. Technology may change how work is organized, but it must also never diminish the dignity of the person doing the work. The third issue that I want us to put into perspective, presence versus productivity. I know there are many public officers in the office. Wenye kuhang koti na kwenda, just because Kuresha said work is 8 to 5. Remote work has actually exposed one of the oldest management's weakness. We must sometimes confuse seeing people with managing people. You may think you have the upper hand just because you've managed to bring Kuresha to the office, but you're actually not managing what she's delivering. Let me rephrase that again. We have confused physical presence with productivity. Having 10 people for 8 hours, that is 80 hours in the office, does not mean they are producing work worth 80 hours of productivity. But the person can be present in the office and still produce very little. There is one of my coaches, and she once asked in a forum, in a HR Congress, with over 1,000 of us, she said, she read somewhere that everyone has 24 hours. We sleep for 8, we work for 8. What do you do with the other 8? But now I want to rephrase it. For those of us who are famous for 8 to 5, can you account if people are productive? And do you think if you gave them only 4 hours, they will be more productive, or even allowed them to be flexible around their time? And I want to tell you, and it's proven in research, you might have someone who worked for present in the office for 8 hours and did nothing. But you will have another person who only worked for 4 hours, focused, and delivered exceptional results for you. The question should no longer be, where is the worker? The question should be, what value is the worker delivering? The HR leaders in this room, and I must say this because it was on record, there is an employer who actually gave me a warning for challenging him and telling him I do not need, and that was in 2018, I do not need to be in the office for me to deliver. But because the policies were very clear that I should be in office 8 to 5, I ended up getting a warning letter for not showing up, even though I proved that the work that was assigned to me, I managed to deliver. So that's why this is something close to my heart. And guess what I did when COVID happened, 2021, even though he was no longer my supervisor. I sent him a screenshot that now he has to invest in technology for everyone to work from wherever they want. And I said, if he had this information, will you have changed his perspective? So sometimes we are very tough on people. Just because you are challenged, that I can still deliver for you without coming to the office. I think it's time we get clarity, because people confuse gig work and remote work, that they can do anything and everything they want. As long as you're clear on what is the result expected, what are the standards we must achieve, when should it be delivered, how will that progress be communicated, and how will that performance be measured? If a manager can only manage people by physically watching them, the organization may not have a remote work problem. It actually has a management capability problem. I'm sure all of you have that one or two managers who are more obsessed on Croatia's presence than what Croatia is actually delivering on. And this is a leadership shift we must therefore have, from managing presence to managing outcomes, from supervising activities to enabling productivities, from counting hours to measuring value. The last and the fourth one, flexibility versus well-being. You know, everything that is good also has its bad side. We must also ask ourselves whether remote work is actually generally improving productivity or making people work longer from different locations. When the home becomes the workplace, because we said it's no longer, the workplace is no longer a workplace, it's a space. When does the day end? When the messages are arriving throughout the evening, is that, listen to this, is that a flexibility or permanent availability? When people work across several time zones, which many of you who work for global institutions, who protects the right to rest? Because I'm sure some of you have found yourself in different time zones. I have worked for institutions for different time zones, and ours had a clarity that if you're working with a team based in the US, your day starts from 3 p.m. So you're already clear on that, so that we do not bother you with the 8 to 5. Productivity built on exhaustion is not sustainable productivity. And again, this reminds me something a former boss said to me. I used to work for IRC, and he found me in the office at 7 p.m. I was young, I had no other responsibilities, and he came and said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm still working, finishing some work." And he came up to me and said, "Croatia, IRC started 1933, and it will still continue. Can you go home and rest? I know you can deliver this work better with a rested mind." So how many of you give that opportunity to your employees? It's something that we need to be responsible for our employees' well-being, as much as we want them to complete a task. We must establish clear expectations around, again, I want you guys to pay attention to this, availability, workload, response time, well-being, and the right to disconnect. I know in Kenya, although it was not clear, there was someone pushing for a bill, right to disconnect. But I can tell you, if there is role clarity, the objective is clear, the timelines are clear, you're very clear on what you're measuring, you do not need any bill to oversight. And that is where many organizations need to get right, because we will not be coming to a bill right to disconnect if we did the right thing. They will perform. I will tell you one thing I have learned working with people. There is nobody who will show up at work if they did not have interest. There's always that excitement. They were your employees. You've hired them through a process. But ask yourself, when they walked into your organization, what happened to their well-being? What have you done to that jovial, your employee that during the interview you knew this is a person who will drive your strategy? That's a question to ponder. And I know I'm speaking to leaders and HR. So what's your responsibility as HR professional? Because everything I have talked about points to us. We are responsible for employees from hire to retire. There's so many steps in between. Who belongs to our workforce when some people are employees, others are consultants, and others are engaged through the platform economy, since now it has already been defined by ILO. How do we build culture among people who may never have met physically? Because that's also overlooked. You will have a whole team working on the same project, but they've never met. So you need to define what will be the culture. How do you create trust without losing accountability? Again, when you bring someone to your team, the trust cup is full. It's up to them and your relationship on how that diminishes, and it's through accountability. How do we measure performance without digital surveillance? Because I know, again, the hype of COVID, many institutions installed apps into the computers of their employees to see, and the last one, which is very close to my heart, human dignity. You to come up with proposed solutions and then share it back in the different platforms. And these are the 4 things that I want you guys to have in mind. Opportunity. Does it expand access to productive work? Productivity. Does it improve measurable performance? Protection. Does it preserve fairness and human dignity? Practicality. Can African organizations and governments realistically implement policies for the gig economies? We must avoid 2 extremes, however. We should not romanticize the gig economy as the automatic solution for Africa's employment challenge. But neither should we fear or overregulate it simply because it does not fit into our traditional understanding of employment. Our responsibility is to create a distinct African approach, one that encourages innovation, expands opportunities, improves productivity, but above all, protects people. Let me conclude with this. The future of work is not simply remote. It is distributed, digital, skill-based, and increasingly measured by results. The organizations that succeed will not be necessarily those with the largest office or the greatest number of employees sitting under one roof. There will be those that can find talent wherever it exists, build trust across distance, protects people fairly, and converts flexibility into productivity. The question is no longer whether gig and remote economy will grow in Africa. It's already growing, and we've seen that. The bigger question is, will Africa merely supply labor to the global gig economy, or will Africa build policies, platforms, skills, and institutions needed to capture its full value? That is a conversation we will have. And before I ask my first question to my panelists, allow me, with a lot of humility, to welcome the mwenyekiti of TREPA. Karibu sana kaka. Na najua wenyeji wako will want to hear from you, but we will save that for later. Karibu. Thank you. As I take my seat, and I want to start with you, Gobir. What is the single biggest opportunity and the single biggest risk that the gig remote workforce prevents for African organizations?
Right. Thank you, Kuresha. I think your intro in itself is a masterclass. And I think she deserves a round of applause. Like the guest of honor said in the morning, I could also have just said, let's pack our bags and call it a day for today, you know, with what you have said. But we will still have this conversation, and thank you for bringing all of this to perspective and with the industry, of course, that went to your presentation. It's an honor to be here, and I'd like to thank the African HR Confederation, led by Raj, and TRAPA, whose executive secretary, Dennis Derua, worked tirelessly to get all of us here. When we started in Kigali in 2024, we all had hoped that the numbers would be more than we had. And I'm glad to note that, yes, the numbers are truly more than we had in Kigali in 2024. There are various associations present here and various countries represented here. And we can only expect to do better, you know, in the third year. I lead an association that has membership of about 30,000 in Nigeria. And for us, we were created by an act of parliament. One, to regulate the practice of HR, to train HR professionals, to license people to practice HR in Nigeria. So our authority is statutory. And what this means for us is that when the gig economy and remote work was foisted on us, as an institute, we began to tell all our members and businesses that, look, this is here now. We need to deal with it. We also need to live with it. I work in manufacturing, you know, as Group Chief HRSR for Dangote Cement. The question people will always ask, can your factory workers work remotely? Of course, we all know that's difficult to do. But can those who manage your factory workers work remotely? You know, the answer to that is yes. And I think COVID showed all of us that when it came, you know, in 2020, 2021. So to your question, now, in my view, the greatest opportunity and the biggest, you know, for gig and the remote workforce, of course, will be the ability, you know, to connect the huge resource and the huge talent pool that we have all across Africa, you know, to productive employment opportunities all over the world. And I believe we're seeing these in so many of our workplaces. Usually when I speak, and you'll have to forgive me, first, I'm a lawyer. Okay, no, first, I took a first degree in history, then I became a lawyer. then I'm an HR professional. So, I mean, tell me, who amongst these three does not like telling stories? Right? So I usually like to, to lace my conversations with stories about some of these things that happen. I work for an organization where, for example, at some point in time, we started a graduate trainee program, with about 20 trainees. And this program was supposed to be for 18 months. Before the 18 months, before the 6th month, actually, 4 left. So we graduated 16. And in 12 months, 15 of the 16 left, leaving only 1. That one worked with us until last year, when in April he also decided to leave. So in 2021, we decided to restructure the program. And in restructuring the program, one of the conversations we had was, why did these graduate trainees, after all the money we spent, leave? It was a gig economy, right? And of course, it was remote work. It wasn't that a number of them, a greater majority of them, did not leave us to go and join other businesses. What they did, in fact, I know 4 of them who simply just put themselves together, started a tech company. One of them went to Canada to sit in Canada, had one go to Kenya, another one stayed in Nigeria, they sent one to Ghana, and they were all working remotely for a tech company, a startup company that they started, started by one of them. That was 4. Many of the others, also did the same. I think we found only 2 who actually went to work for other businesses. What I am trying to say is that before we realized it as employers, the gig economy was up on us, and we all have them. A lot of our children that we're growing now, even when they are in school, are working for businesses overseas, all across, Africa, and in so many other locations. So it is the enormous, connecting Africa's talent pool to the enormous employment opportunities that we have. If we cannot do that, then we do have a risk. Right. Whilst there is an opportunity there, if we do not take advantage of that opportunity, then we do have a risk. And the greatest risk, in my view, will be that without the right institutions, like Kurusha spoke about earlier, without the right kind of protections, then what we will simply be doing will be digitizing and digitalizing informality, rather than improving, of course, the quality of work. If gig workers and remote workers do not have the right kind of protection, you will simply have handed them internet connectivity, digitization, right? But they do not have the protection to do that. So employers can choose to also pay whatever they want or remunerate them in whatever way they want to do that. Those will be my thoughts now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you so much. And something that have come out very clear is that you have to look at the roles you have. What is it that can be done remotely and what is essential? So I'm hoping by the end of this conversation, you'll have configured your policies. So the essential roles and the management roles that can be done remotely. Wally, I'll pose the same question to you. In just one sentence, what's the biggest opportunity and the biggest risk that the gig and the remote workforce presents for African organization?
Thank you, Kuresha. It's an honor for me to be here, part of this big summit, African summit, where we have leaders from across Africa. So I come from the other side of Africa as well, Senegal, and it's an honor to represent my president, Mr. Ibrahim Mbaye, president of the association. In fact, ASPRH is in French. We call it ASPRH. in French, ASPRH, for Association des professionnels en ressources humaines. So, association, Senegalese Association of Human Resources Professionals. It's the leading association in Senegal right now, not as big as CIPM, but we inspire from them. So roughly 1,500 members and leaders from HR domain in Senegal. And we also talk about these new trends, these challenges, and government listens to us regarding the propositions we can provide to policies and what they can implement. So for this question, of course, we've thought about it in the past. It sounds new, but it's something that's been going on for quite some long, and we are seeing the effects already. Gig work and remote work is something that brings opportunities, lots of opportunities. One of the biggest I can point out, as Mr. Gobir said, is the fact that it removes borders. So I can be in Senegal and work with anyone across Africa. As you said it, many people raise their hand, they worked with people they had never seen before. So that brings an opportunity where organizations can work with African young talents everywhere, either be it Uganda, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Tanzania, Kenya, whatever they are, we can work. The borders are not existing anymore. And we know that Africa is the largest or the biggest talent pool and the fastest growing young talent of the world. So it means, as you mentioned it also, we are the number of roles or positions created are far below the number of youth entering the market. So they have to go somewhere. It's a crisis if not managed. Without the digital platform, it would be a problem. But now we have that opportunity. So to come back to the question, the biggest opportunity is that those young talents can now be exposed to new opportunities, regardless of the borders. But also that comes with risk. What's the risk? Mr. Gobi mentioned it. Protection, you also mentioned it. Protection. They are not included in any policy. They are not included in any, because the relation vanishes between the employee and the employers. Are they called employees? They are not employees. Are they employees? So it's a question mark. So the duties or what the employers had to cover for that those workers also is quite opaque. So it's something that needs to be addressed. So protection. But I see something else also, maybe that's not really visible, is that, okay, borders have been removed, so we can work with anyone, but also companies will use that opportunity to post jobs regardless of the border, regardless of the location. What is the issue? What issue can come up from that? The rate of the offer, or if I can say, the labor wanting to get that opportunity is multiplied. It's not only related to location. So competition increases, which means, for example, for gig workers, they will compete on the rate because they have to gain, they want to compete, they want to get the job. So it's a competition to bring the lowest rate, and it comes back to what we call, okay, the how we call it again, the protection and the condition, the working condition, because they are working same work, same job, but at the lowest rate. That also is a risk that we have, because it's not regularized. It's not there's no policy. It's not regulatory. There's no regulatory policies about that. So it's a problem. So apart from protection, there is something that also needs to be that issue need to be addressed to have the minimums. As for many countries, in Senegal, there are minimum wages, there are minimum that the companies cannot go below. But for this aspect, it's just they're on their own. So it's like they're hunting, and it's something that needs to be addressed. So opportunity, but that also, it comes with that huge risk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wally. It removes borders, but also risk of regulating the wages. Can you pay the same rate you're paying for someone who's based in the US or even within Africa? So that is, again, a policy document in terms of remuneration. Now I come to you, Calvin, Zambia. What is the biggest risk, same question, and the biggest opportunity that the gig economy and remote work presents from your perspective?
Thank you very much, Chris. Kelvin here. Usually they call me Mr. Shams. And that's because most of the times I'm sitting next to people that are much thin compared to me. So I usually stand out. One of the things that Chris didn't introduce me on is the fact that when I started my career, I worked in a university setup, the University of Zambia. So I got a lot of information from there. And when I moved on, I went and worked for the Anti-Corruption Commission. So what I went to do there was just to master how the thieving environment, and how to do corruption, how to prevent. I learned all that. And then after that, I moved on to the Zambia Public Procurement Authority, where there are tenders. So you can imagine the profile I had in that environment. It was easy to participate in a tender, and you can't catch me because I was an expert in corruption identification, corruption prevention. And then I moved on and went to work for the Zambia Revenue Authority. Now you can imagine how much money I'm able to see. Thank you very much. So the gig and remote work environment has got a lot of opportunities. And one of the things that I like to focus on in these sessions, we do not trust anybody to look after our own children. And I've always said, the gig and remote work economy has given us that opportunity. You can be working and looking after your children. You can grow them and see them become responsible children. I'm coming from an environment where we have a number of street kids, and a lot of you can relate. Some of these junkies, as we commonly call them, are children coming from homes of well-to-do people like yourselves. Raj here, president, who produced a junkie. The reason is very simple. Raj was not there to see how this child was growing. He never had time to tell the child, this is wrong, this is right. And so this presents a very big opportunity for most of us in Africa, especially that now we are moving from extended family to nuclear family. And that's a revolution that has taken place over the years. So that shift from extended family to nuclear family is putting a lot of pressure on how we raise our children. And I like to say, the few generation coming ahead of us is a generation that is basically self-driven. They have taught themselves what to do. They have learned all the wrong things. And don't be shocked when they tell you, hey, sit down, regardless of whether you are the father or the mother, because that is the lifestyle they have chosen. Because we divorce ourselves from their growth, then you have a population of young people who are not very strong mentally. I always share experience. I work with a lot of young people in the Revenue Authority, and one of the things they will tell me, they'll just walk into my office and tell me, DHR, I think I can't put up with my boss. What is the issue? I just don't like the way he dresses. It's an old outfit. So just an outfit presses mental disturbance on an employee. And you're asking yourself, so what is the solution to that problem? I think I can work better from home. Well, they're simply telling you that I don't have to be in the office and meet this guy that I don't like. I can still give you results. So that is one of the biggest opportunities. It has the potential to, make us have a clear conscience, focus on our wellness, and do a lot of things. But the risk is this: you have a lot of disloyalty because people are not tuned to the culture of the organization. And that's one of the biggest challenges that we have. We don't share in the same culture, as an organization. Because I work from home, I find myself developing and getting used to my own culture, as opposed to the common culture that the organization basically promotes. And I've had experiences when you go to North Europe. It's a very individualistic society. Each one focuses on themselves, and that's one of the reason why it's like that is because one, that side it's very cold, so you don't have time to stand in the streets and chat with anyone. When you come out of your house, you are running to the tram. You get to the tram, you are shivering, so you are holding a paw and focusing on preserving your own energy. Eventually, you become individualistic. So loyalty is lost among employees because of the gig economy. I think I'll end here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Calvin. And the HR professionals in the room, remember we talked about strategic positioning. You've seen now that is strategic position. Allow me to digress. The fact that he understood the business model of his employers across and used it to his advantage to advance his leadership. Thank you. And also thank you for bringing out the issue from another perspective, that we are dealing with a generation that not only have solutions, but they'll tell you even the dress code of someone destabilizes their productivity. And they will do it with zero chills. And for us parents, you brought up something very key. We were wondering what happened to our children, but we used technology to help us raise them. I never forget in 2021 when homeschooling started and my daughter said she's #1 in her class, and I'm like, you've just done the exam, how do you know? And then she looked at me and said, Mom, you don't know about Kahoot. Later on, I texted the teacher. I told her, before you embarrass me in front of Aisha, you need to tell me there's an app that tells her the results immediately. So she already knew, they did the test, and she already knew she was #1. But me, I was waiting for the report form to come. So that is the generation we're dealing with. Now, Gobir, let me ask you this question. With everything that we've discussed, how do we manage performance of employees or gig workers when they're not physically present with us? Picking from where you said you can have your managers work from home. So how do you manage their performance?
All right. Thank you, Kuresha. I think one of the things you said during your intro is, one, presence is not performance. I think we all can relate to that and we all can agree to that. So before now, maybe what we used to do is measure presenteeism. How many times was Gobir in the office, whether or not he's doing well? At lunch, during break, one of my colleagues walked up to me and said, looks like you travel a lot. You're all over the place. First, my role as president of CIPM, enables me to attend these conferences here and there or whatever. As Group Chief HR Officer of Dangote Cement, we are operating in 11 countries, which means I also, sometimes have to visit these countries. I flew in from Ghana to come here, for example. But am I able to do my work wherever I am? Yes. While we were having the opening ceremony, I'm sure Kurisha saw an earpiece on my ear. I was actually attending an NPR meeting, while there. And at the point I needed to speak, for example, I simply stepped out and I spoke. Now, one, that is what remote work is doing for all of us. Now, is my boss able to measure my performance? I would say yes. And a big yes, because I really do not have to be in the office to do what I have to do. And I think that works for all of us. Like Kuresha said, quite a number of us here, from morning till now have been doing our jobs, and we've all flown in from all over the world. I mean, all over Africa, Lesotho, Malawi, Nigeria, Ghana. That is not stopping our work. So presence is not performance. The second thing is to measure the performance of gig workers or remote workers. What we should be looking at is observable contribution. What is this person delivering to the team? What is this remote or gig worker contributing, to the task or to the deliverables of the team? So, to be able to measure their performance, we should be looking at what are the expected outcomes, like you spoke about earlier on. We must agree on the quality of the standard that we expect, from a gig worker. We must also agree on the timeline for the deliverables, of course, that we set out. Now, there's what we also call stakeholder result, and stakeholder results will come with evidence of completion. Now, beyond the team lead or beyond the supervising manager, are other people also able to say that even though this employee or this staff of yours is working remotely, we can actually see the contribution, of this employee. So for employees who are working remotely, in order to assess performance, you must look at, of course, collaboration. You must look at organizational behavior. You must look at capability development, and even compliance. So for genuinely remote workers or genuine remote workers or gig workers, I would focus more, on the deliverables that we have agreed, on the milestones that we have agreed to achieve, and of course, the quality of the deliverables and the service. Now, so why not losing sight of the fact that, look, we have timelines within which to do this. And at all times, again, are we rewarding this remote worker or this gig worker, for the quality of work that they are delivering? That's, in my view, is how to measure the performance, of a remote worker or a gig worker. Thank you.
Thank you, Gobir. We've all agreed, and I hope you will go and change a lot of mindsets that presentism is not performance. And there are so many other ways you can hold employees accountable. Wally, I have a long question for you. I want you will help us put into perspective. What has remote work and gig economy changed about the skills of organizations that we used to hire for? Are we still hiring for qualification and experience, or should we be looking differently at skills, adaptability, and results?
Okay, very interesting question. Qualifications, experience, those are still where they were. Very important. For example, for some roles, qualification is mandatory, like a doctor, lawyer, those qualifications are mandatory. Experience as well. But in the fast changing work environment, the shift is more focused on skills right now. So for now, uh, the short answer is a yes, but a no. Why? The no, because we should not ignore completely qualification. Qualification is what the person has learned, experience, what the person has done. But can we ask the question, is the person able to add value in a fast-changing environment? What are the skills the person can bring to the table and deliver? Those are skills that needs to be taken into consideration. For now, there's a gap, already identified gap in terms of qualification, because the work as we know it has evolved rapidly. It's different 5 years ago, from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So if we talk about qualification, we already have a gap. Let's say, let now focus on the shift skills, for example. Yes, the gap becomes wider. So as a recruiter, in the traditional sense of recruiting, we were screening degree, job title, experience. But as a recruiter, in this modern or new way of working, we should also focus on what the person can do, what the person has done or achieved. And it's especially valid in works related to digital, like digital transformation, digital marketing, or those positions. We need to have what the person has done. Now, talking to gig work, some young persons, I would say, has done some valuable things, but not in a company, but with companies. So it's a valid experience. It's a valid skill that can be also used to select the person as a valuable candidate. So those aspects should be considered. It brings the question into a perspective where we cannot ignore one, but we should consider the other as very important. The one is, okay, qualification, let's still use it. Experience, let's still use it, but let's shift a little bit our focus on skills, adaptability, capability. Those are important also to consider. So not ignore the first one, or the traditional method, but consider the skill-based screening recruitment.
Thank you, Wally. I think, again, we come back to the qualifications. It is a must-have, but the skills of adaptability and delivering results in the fast changing place of work is key for everyone. So thank you for putting that into perspective for us. Now allow me to go to Calvin. Calvin, what is that one HR policy that organizations need to rethink because of the rise of remote and gig work?
Thank you very much, Grace. I'm sure that everybody here has that response. So my boss, one of my former boss, one day came to my office and he looked at me. I think that was, after 5. And he looked at me and said, Kelvin, do you know that measuring butts in seats creates busy work and removes your flexibility? I never understood what he meant. On hindsight, I went back to him and said, boss, were you trying to say I'm gaining a lot of weight and I'm no longer flexible? He just says, look, my friend, I see how you work hard. I see a lot of your results. And I see how much work you take on from your colleagues. Yes and no. You have gained a bit of weight, maybe because you just recently married. But I can tell you, you're sitting in the office from 5 to 9 in the evening is not good for you. He was simply telling me, I must not be a desk guy throughout. I must find time to wind away. Because I'll tell you, I lost a lot of friends during that period because it was a period where I needed to demonstrate that I'm one of those that you can trust with anything. Now, one policy that we all need to get rid of is this notion that you must report at 8 in the morning and leave the office at 5 p.m. I think what matters now is not the time that you spend in your office. And Ahmed just spoke to presentism. You're basically just present. There are days because of stress that I would report at 8, and when I'm knocking off at 19, I look back. How many of you are guilty of getting a salary for free? A lot of us. There's nothing literally that I have done. And that's because sitting in the morning from 8 to 5 can be stressful. And so you need to begin to rethink such kind of policies. And you see, it's even worse. Most of the appointment letters that we do, if you notice clearly, you even spell out time you're supposed to report for work. You will be required to report for work at 8, between 8 and 5. You have a lunch break of 1 hour between 12 and 13 or 13 and 14 hours. And when people are not present, we think they are absent from duty. And you see, that kind of thinking made us adopt a lot of funny policies, unfortunately. Clocking in and clocking out. At the end of the day, as head of HR, you are running a payroll and deducting hours because people reported at 9 and left at 4. But when you look at the output, you bring the reports and say, okay, let's do a sample of the outputs, deliverables from individuals. You discover that those that are loyal to time, their output is far less compared to those who will come in, deliver specific issues, and leave. So for me, that is one area that we need to rethink. Now we need to now obviously begin to think about how then are we going to manage performance away from the 8 to 5 thinking. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If I summarize that, it's time we have within our workplaces, and if you can influence governments to have a flexi policies and regulations in place. Let me ask this question to you, Mr. Gobir. You're working for a multinational company. What are the 2 to 3 things that HR must get right to maintain productivity and accountability in the remote workplaces if those policies were actualized?
All right, thank you, Kuresha. I keep saying that your intro was a master class because you, if I had shared my notes ahead, I would have said, Kuresha had a peek into my notes, before she spoke. For me, one of the things you spoke to and which I would like to reiterate, is first clarity. As HR professionals, when we bring people into our respective organizations, I always say they must have clarity of what our expectations are as employers. They must have clarity as to what their deliverables are as employees. That's the covenant, between an employer and an employee. So people must know and understand the outcomes that they own. A group managing director, for example, or chief executive knows he has responsibility for the P&L at the end of the day. But every employee has a contribution to make to achieving that P&L or achieving that EBITDA for those of us in the private sector. So everyone must first understand and own the outcomes expected from them. And that's where clarity, comes in. They must understand the standards expected, They must also have the right to some decisions if you give them responsibilities and you expect some outcomes, from them. Now, clarity also, of course, will let employees understand that a lot of our roles have interdependencies, right? For example, Wally and I work together. Wally sits as HR director for Dangote Cement in Senegal. I sit as group chief HR officer at the group head office for Dangote Cement in the head office. For him to be able to deliver, or for me to deliver on some of the KPIs that I have, for example, my deliverable is dependent on what Wally does, for example, in Senegal, what my colleague in Congo does in Congo, what my colleague in Ethiopia does in Ethiopia. So employees must understand that there are interdependencies, for example, in their roles. So clarity is important. The second for me will be capability. Now, we must enable employees who work remotely or who work in the gig economy to have digital fluency. And like you said earlier on, of what use is asking an employee to work remotely if he does not have the digital infrastructure to do the work that they want to do? When COVID came in 2020, I'm sure we cannot relate to that. Our employers were loading, us with internet connectivity. In Nigeria, for example, where we use the Naira, I won't be able to translate that. Sometimes, in 1 week, I get airtime, I get internet connectivity, 100,000 Naira. I had multiple devices from MTN, from Airtel, from Etisalat at that time, from Glo, just so to ensure that at every point in time, I am connected, and I'm able to, so capability and digital fluency is important. Of course, the second is self-management and adaptability. Self-management and adaptability, because what remote work, again, does for all of us, and what it did to so many of us, especially during COVID, was we sit at our desk, even though we are working from home at 8 a.m., from 8 a.m., and some of us were not leaving our desk even in the middle of the night, 12 midnight. For me, for example, sometimes, at the point at which I get to leave my workstation in the house is when I have to go say my prayers. Or when Madam comes and says, you still have not had lunch. Lunch has gone cold. That's when you leave. And then you do it, and then you go back. So employees must have capability, right? But even with capability, we must be able to self-manage, our time. The third, of course, is accountability. Performance requires credible measures. So if you're going to be able to measure how accountable an employee is, you must also set tasks, that are measurable. We all talk about smart KPIs. I'm sure we all understand this and we know it. But how many of us actually set smart KPIs, for our team members? We're all guilty of just living KPIs very loosely, and at the end of the year, you are trying to measure what has this employee actually delivered. So we must encourage, smart KPIs, measurable KPIs, for our employees. That way we can hold them accountable. And when we take decisions, they must be transparent. Employees must be able to relate to the fact that, no, the decisions that are being taken by the team or by my team lead, are such that I can relate to and every member of the team can relate to. So for me, those three things will be: one, clarity of outcome, capability to do what you have to do, and accountability, owning what you have to do and to deliver them. Thank you.
Thank you, Gobir. And another one I picked from your conversation is collaboration. Before I come back to my panel, I wanted to have an open mic. And if you have any question for the panel, but to the audience also, I have a question for you. And because this is Africa, and Africa is our business, You know, as professionals, we have left a lot of things to politicians. And with no offense to any politicians, you know, we confuse politicians to be leaders. If you go and look for the definition of a leader, then you will think twice on how we address our politicians. So to the audience, what will separate the African organizations that benefit from the gig economy from those that will struggle with the same for the next 5 years? What do you think the African organizations that have gotten right on gig economy are doing better than those who will struggle for the next 5 years? If you have an African example you can share, if you have a global example you can share. Also, if you have any question for what we've discussed this far. Thank you. There are mics. So there is a hand behind you. Irene, if you can also get one to Raj. So she can go first. If you can stand and maybe introduce yourself, your name, the country and the organization you work for. Or are you contributing to the question I've asked, or are you asking a question? And then there's a lady in orange, and then we come to Raj. Let's take those three first. And please, if it's a question, mention which member of the panel you're addressing to. Thank you. If you can stand so that the ladies holding the mic can see you and hand it to you.
Thank you very much, Kuresha, for moderating the panel so well and how you started us off. My name is Catherine Nachaze from Uganda. I work with Uganda Matters University. I'm the director HR. I request to ask my question to Wally. Why? Because you also asked him. That was a question that you gave him. I would like to pick from his playbook. What is the best way to pick out those soft skills from an interviewee during an interview? Like, yes, we have said qualifications are important, skills, experience is important, but we also want to know if the person is adaptable, if the person will be able to thrive. What is the best way to include that in an interview panel and be able to differentiate a good candidate or a candidate who has an edge in that area over the others? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine. The next question, Welly, I hope you've noted that. Let's take several and we asked. So, Raj, please proceed.
Madam Rita, to the big issue here is, since COVID, work from home. Can you hear me? Nonetheless, what has transpired post-COVID, people got so used to working from home that they do not want to come back to work. Now, this is not an individual company. It's not our continent. It's a worldwide problem. And there are some cases in the world where employers have taken the employers to the courts challenging this work from home. The first question is, if employees are not fully engaged during working hours when they're physically at work, how do you expect workers to be fully engaged when they are at home? And there is reality. There are employees, they are few and far between, where you get employees who actually really work diligently from home. And there are employees who don't. You also have the extent sometimes it's good, especially if like for working mothers, especially when it comes to newborn babies, where the mothers can get more flexible and be allowed to have work. But there has to be a measure of control. And earlier on, we spoke about the performance management and correctly said that, Gobri, I think you said this, that you do a KPI, but how often do we use a KPI to measure? We only use a KPI when we're going to give a salary increase to measure, or when we want to get rid of somebody because they have not met their performance or their KPI. So it is crucial to understand that what we can do with our culture, with our employees, there has to be a culture change. And when we actually allowed employee to work from home, we need to amend their contract, have an addendum to the contract as to why they're working from home, because they can hold you can hold them to that. The fact that you allowed them to work from home without any addendum to the existing contract, they can counter hold you to it and say that became an established practice. But having said that, there's another inherent danger, and I'm not sure if it happens in other countries in Africa, but when I was talking this morning about the Kenyan labor law and the South African labor law, which seems to have synergy, there were two recent cases in South Africa where a lady was working from home, and during working hours, she had to go and make a cup of coffee, and she boiled the water. And that water fell and burnt her. The compensation for occupational injuries and diseases, that's an insurance for the company, refused to pay her because they said that there was she is not covered in terms of that ruling of working from home. So getting to the point of what everyone has made, I think people got used to wanting to work from home. They keep on saying they're saving petrol, they're saving this and that. How many organizations who give their managers or whoever all the petrol allowance or all the perks, do they do an adjustment to that and say, now you're working from home, I don't need to give you petrol allowance, or I don't need to do this? These are serious matters happening with the work from home issue. And then lastly, it is important that people need to understand there are some people like us, HR people, more of us who work in big corporate offices, sit in the Eiffel Tower, that don't need to go on the shop floor. But the majority of us need to be there. We need to interact with workers. We need to do that. I mean, when we were in Cyprus, there was a question whether AI will take over from HR people. And the response from the professor was clear, that AI cannot talk to a human being. So if a human being has got a problem and he wants to go and see his HR person, he has to talk face to face together. So I think it's something to be thought for everyone to think. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Raj. Raj has asked a question. He also answered the question that I've posed to the delegates. So thank you. We have 2 questions so far. We can take one more from Madam Susan. Yeah, please proceed, and then you can bring the mic, another mic here. So that makes it 4. We close it at that. Then we'll come back for a second round.
Thank you. I want to thank the panels for having spoken on so many areas of HR. But I know COVID was the pathfinder to the remote work system that we have had over time. What about future scenarios? Something else, aside COVID, may happen. How much of a competency master plan would we require for those who will do the gig and the remote workforce, especially considering behavioral dynamics? There's the gender preferences, and there's the dichotomy between the public and the private sector as it's concerned. So I think the whole panel from Malam Gobir, Tawali, and Calvin can help us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kresha. And first, I have to congratulate you for a very good masterclass and the opening, and also applaud the panel for the discussions. But I would like to start where Raj actually finished on the issues of workers' compensation and the example that he given on in the course of working while somebody is working at home, an employee. Yeah, from the employer's perspective, you look into the evidence to see whether this was in the course of employment. But however, this is where the question of policy that is coming in. What kind of policies are we going to put in place when we're talking about remote working? And this is the job that the HR professionals need to come up and to think together. What kind of policies? And these policies need to be intertwining with the Workers' Compensations Act and the policies as well. But going on into the Africa Gig and Workforce and remote workforce, you had presented on what Africa can benefit from gig and remote workforce. While in Geneva for International Labour Conferences this year, there was an adoption of the new ILO conventions on ILO decent work on platform workers. And now there is a definition whether anybody working on the platform economy is not an employee, because you have self-employed people. But there's so many advantages that are being brought out, as Kevin had stated before, that economic empowerment and the participation on the platform economy, that now we can participate and contribute into the bigger market in the world just because of the platform. Policies, we are not left behind, and making sure that they do speak into the world of work now. We are talking about the future of work, but I would say it's not the future of work, it's the world of work now and the trends that are coming into the emerging markets where people can work but they've never met. What kind of policies that will benefit the workers in Africa, but also you should know that issues of productivity, they have been put in place, but yes, and I agree with Raju, that yes, people can stay at home, but it is the mindset and the attitude. You have the younger generation, there are people who can set themselves to stay at home, but then you can have a workforce that comes to work every day, but they will still not perform the work, as Kelvin said. So there is a mindset change, there's a change of attitude, so it's a bigger question altogether, and discussions like this are very healthy, and the HR professionals are the ones who can help up to making sure that these conversations do continue, but we must also change our policies and continue to have these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. Allow us to respond to that, and to every HR professional in the room. Susan spoke for the employers. She is the president of Tanzania Federation of Employers. So, and I will start with that question. How do we put policies in place for the world of work? It's no longer about the future of work. And how do we align that with the Workers' Compensation Act, or whichever name you call it, within the different countries that we work in, that we can benefit from? And Gobir, I'll start with you. Just one, and then if you can just contribute away from what Gobir has said, so that everyone can benefit.
All right. Thank you very much, and thank you to all those who made the contribution and asked questions. I think, like Susan said, the ILO convention, which was adopted in June 2026, specifically spoke to or speaks to employment relationships, fundamental rights for platform economy workers, protection, occupational safety, remuneration, protection of personal data, and automated monitoring and, of course, decision making. What I believe the convention is saying to all of us is that, one, the gig economy is here with us. Remote work, of course, is here with us. We need to have in place policies that also protect these workers. And there are so many more, gig workers and remote workers than those of us who actually do the 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 that we do. So yes, we should have policies, in place. But one of the things that I always said, and that takes me to perhaps responding to Raj's point, particularly about the South African case. There's a reason why we are called HR, human resource, right? If you take away the H of the human, what are we? We're just a resource like any other resource, right? Like capital, like land, like production facilities. The difference between us and these other resources is the human. So when we insist or make policies that then somehow excludes, our employees from benefits or compensations on account of the fact they are not embedded in our policies, we're taking away the human, right? Or the humanness from what we do as HR. What makes us different from all others is that as HR professionals, we are expected to be compassionate, we are expected to be empathetic. That is the difference between us and robots. And that's why we keep saying AI will not take our jobs, right? Or robots will not take our jobs. Because robots cannot be compassionate, they also cannot be empathetic. In my world, with the kind of case that Raj cited, in my world, we make exceptions. And as HR professionals, we make policies. What I always say is we should also not be slaves to the policies that we make, especially when it comes, to our employees and to our workers. So people will make policies. Government will make policies. We domesticate the policies, but we adopt the policies, of course, also to the benefits of those who work in our respective organizations. That, in my view, is what makes us HR professionals and will make us different from others. Thank you.
Thank you. Wally?
Okay, very good perspective, and I will be glad to say that in Senegal, just yesterday, Tuesday, the parliament voted the reform of the labor code, and they included how we call it again, the remote, some regulation about remote work. It was a work we've been doing for 2 years now, and more than 2 years actually, and we were not able to stabilize it. ISPRH, our association, worked on it. We recommended some changes, and it's only yesterday that it was voted. I had the information when I was traveling. One thing is that it covers the protection. Even though decrees has to come to clarify it, it covers the protection that we talked about. It covers also, it tried to, bring fairness to the remote work, because often they are forgotten because we don't see them. We are trying to control, we're using digital tools, but fairness is not easy to implement when